Hello everyone, and welcome back to Stories Retold, a video series revisiting some of my favorite childhood games, diving deep into their story and lore as it happens. We previously covered Metroid Prime, and given the amount of positive feedback and requests for a follow-up, here we are covering its sequel. As with the first installment in this series, I'll be presenting the events of the game in chronological order as if playing it through for the first time. This will also be presented without the context of any Metroid games outside of the Prime trilogy. Because of the sheer depth of coverage, I've split this one into two parts. So if you're watching this after part 2 is released, continue on at the end of the video or by clicking the link in the description. This is the story of Metroid Prime 2, Echoes. Mission File 2546. 8 days ago, contact with Galactic Federation Trooper Squad Bravo was lost. Contract Agreement. Locate Federation troopers and render assistance. Data confirmation. Last transmission received from a rogue planet located in the Dasha region called Aether. Uploading last coordinates now. Immediately we gain new insight into who Samus is and what she does. She's not a power beam slinging, dead or alive head collecting bounty hunter, or at least not exclusively. She also accepts contracts to help the Galactic Federation to give aid to soldiers who are in peril. This offers depth to her occupation as a bounty hunter, but also depth to her character as a helper, an ally, a leader, and continuing to clarify her frequent role as a savior. What would a savior be if not one who was unafraid to march into danger, into the unknown? Here we see Samus doing just that, plunging into the atmosphere of a little-known planet on the edge of Federation space. Taking considerable damage upon planetfall, Samus crash lands on the surface. Not her worst landing, but definitely not her best. Samus is back in her Various suit after the brain of Metroid Prime latched onto her with a dying breath and pried away her Phazon suit, sending the crater into a state of collapse, destroying the Chozo Temple. Now as we step into unfamiliar territory, we also step into unfamiliar circumstances, stranded on the surface as a result of damage to the ship during entry. It's entirely possible that the Federation troopers fell to the same fate. Our first observations and scans tell us right away that wherever we are, we're probably coming back with upgrades, but for the time being, we just need to find a way out of the crash site. Taking another plunge, Samus reaches the first sight of the Marines. Several machines keen to their design, but something's definitely not right. The air is a thick green haze, there's burn scars and fires still burning, visible signs of a struggle and bodies. Lots and lots of bodies. Our first scan of a large splinter reveals that its death was caused as a result of inhalation of industrial-grade pesticides, and that the pesticides are still airborne. If this green haze took out these creatures, it's a good thing we're inside this suit. Further scans on dead splinters as you move through the area reveal cause of death by an unusual amount of weapon fire, more than necessary to kill it. Marines are not prone to such overkill. Upon entering the next room, we get our first look at the Galactic Federation via their interactive consoles. These consoles tell us that communication systems are offline and the troopers are on full lockdown, but several gates have taken considerable damage due to local hostiles and are on the verge of breach. Furthermore, we learn that it was the troopers that activated the ventilation systems and pumped pesticides into the air in order to kill the aforementioned hostiles. However, according to Casualty Report Sector Alpha, 3 troopers were killed in the process. They were unable to open Gate Alpha 1 when a gas trap was engaged, and could not escape to safety. Lock malfunction is to blame. Right around the corner, we find these troopers, suspended by webs and being eaten by splinters. These scans are revealing. The first trooper's life sign suggests they were experiencing a great level of fear at the time of death. The left trooper's cause of death was fatal wounds caused by a Galactic Federation assault weapon, likely killed in friendly fire. Whether it was an accident or not remains to be seen. The trooper hanging from the ceiling reveals more than 30 individual attackers caused its death. And finally, the last trooper's cause of death was by an unknown toxin in the target's body, and trace elements of this toxin are present in the area. The situation in the next room is no better. A dead trooper with his hand clutching a lever, more fires, destruction, and sounds of more splinters on the other side of the wall. Whatever took place here happened in such a way to instill fear and panic into trained soldiers. Friendly fire, accidental casualties, and overkill all suggest a sudden, overwhelming force. Here we get our first lore. Gunnery Sergeant Bennett suggests that someone or something is manipulating the locking systems, effectively rendering them live bait for these splinters. Specialist Reeves' lore suggests there's dissension in the ranks. A plan to take out a splinter hive, but there's doubt about their plan. Destroying this hive may provoke others to come. One has to ask at this point, why are the troopers fighting these splinters to begin with? Did they come on a mission, set up an operating base, and were attacked by the locals? Or did they come to conquer the area in the name of the Galactic Federation, and the splinters were acting in self-defense? Either way, at this point it's becoming clear who won the battle, as the area is littered with bodies while splinters feed on their prize. One final room reveals the desperation of these troopers, hot-wiring emergency power from their ship's power cells, more dead bodies, and a large splinter whose cause of death was close-quarters combat by an unarmed trooper. After powering the door in the main room, the dark tone of this mass grave turns even darker, when out of the ground, a thick, shadowy presence envelops the bodies of your dead comrades and summons them back to battle. These dark troopers are, quote, deceased Galactic Federation soldiers categorized as Darkling Off-World. Bioscans indicate terminated life signs and the presence of an unknown biomass with parasitic tendencies. This echoes previous fights with Chozo ghosts, but this time something is actually possessing the bodies of the dead. It seems we are now already on the move to unravel a mystery like that of the Great Poison on Talon 4. And interestingly enough, the music in this area includes instrumental motifs from the early stages of Chozo Ruins. Eerie, lonely, and pointing towards something we've encountered before. And where have we seen that blue trimmed armor before? But this is new. A dimensional rift with an unknown destination. This seems pretty risky. But Samus, being no stranger to risks, steps forward and ventures into the unknown. Well, transdimensional travel isn't for everyone. As her power suits recover and run diagnostic tests, this little tidbit of information is exceptionally fascinating. Chozo battlesuit alert. Gear stolen by unknown creatures. It was at this point when it all came together for me. The amount of emotion, effort, and dedication Samus went through to save the Chozo. The look on her face at the destruction of their temple. Her victory over Prime, yet defeat over the entire Chozo race. They were the ones who designed and gave her the suit. Of course, this caused me to wonder, what other connections did she have with the Chozo? And what other connections may we see in this game? But a more pressing question emerges. Who was that creature who looked exactly like you? And she was manipulating what appeared to be Phazon. And why didn't these creatures attack her? As is typical, these events unfold before we can interpret its meaning, and we will have to wait to understand what's truly going on here. So, after pulling herself together after being severely shaken up, Samus presses on.
달라요, 지킴이 세대가.
Our first good look at the planet itself is somewhat reminiscent of Chozo ruins and Phazon mines put into one. But something's off. An audible, visible pulsing in the sky, occasionally glowing an eerie purple. This same eerie purple that we saw entering the atmosphere and interwoven into the biomass that possessed the Dark Troopers. Continuing on, we read the log of Private First Class M. Veroni, which begins to paint the deeper picture.
I think Haley's losing it. He keeps talking to himself all the time and he won't sleep. He almost shot me on watch the other night. I think he thought I was one of those things. I talked to the doc about taking him off the line, but he said we need all the help we can get. That's true, but if he goes berserk and kills a bunch of us, that won't be very helpful.
What makes this log very telling is his reference to those things, as if he's unsure of what those things are. To this point, the troopers have been on the planet long enough and have had several encounters with the splinters, as is evidenced by your discoveries so far. But the overkill, the desperation, and now the comrade whose mental health is degrading to the point of vivid hallucinations and trying to kill a brother in arms suggests there's something deeper. Something is going on here. Something is keeping them here. Something or someone didn't want them to escape. We learn shortly hereafter that their ship has sustained similar damage that yours did upon entry, which they attribute to atmospheric interference. The question is, was it natural or supernatural? By the looks of things, the Federation troopers have been here for some time, long enough to establish a sizable forward operating base, as gear, heavy crates, and large equipment are sprawled everywhere. One piece of equipment, though, strikes your interest: a large mechanical door with a purple hologram emitting from a projector in the center of the door. Attempts to scan the door tell us that it is impossible to translate. Unlikely that the Federation troopers would have installed such an intricate system, which begs the question: who was here before them, and are they still here? After attempts to make contact off-world fail, you continue on through the halls, dispatching more Dark Troopers along the way. And coming to the edge of the temple grounds, Samus discovers the downed Federation patrol ship, Tyre. Through the logs left behind, we witness the final stand.
While on patrol in the Dasher system, we engaged an unknown space pirate frigate. The enemy frigate was crippled and it crashed onto the planet Aether. We followed the pirates, but our ship was damaged by a storm as we entered Aether's atmosphere. Heavy magnetic activity during the storm disabled our comm system. Upon landing, we split into two units, one to set up an off space, and the other to repair the ship. Each unit was doing fine, no problems, until Vali appeared.
This is the moment when we begin to understand. These aren't normal splinters. These are Darklings, possessed just like the Dark Troopers before. And as we see every member from Force 1 killed in a matter of moments, we now understand the desperation which left a path of destruction in the fight that wiped out Force 2. Critically injured and with a final breath, Exerter leaves behind a final warning to anyone else who may be so unlucky to tread on their grave. In addition to this, he leaves behind an additional log for us to scan, confirming the suspicion of Specialist Reeves, that this hive was just one in a massive network of many others. It's stupid to stir a hornet's nest, especially if you're sleeping under it. Reading Private First Class E. Denny's log, we get the conclusion of their story.
I'm the only one left. Managed to get out of the hive, but when we got to the ship, everyone was gone. Dead. I'm heading for that alien building we saw earlier. Maybe someone can help me there.
He didn't make it. Inside Tyre, we find the assigned seating to the crew, as well as a map room, which gives us our first bird's eye view of the temple grounds. A winding network of hallways and plazas with the large aforementioned alien structure in the center. Ascending higher through the temple grounds, we reach the first view of this alien structure, and our first look at those who built it. At the base of this tower, a body lays lifeless against its foundation. Scans of the bodies tell us that an unknown chemical substance is present on the body, something working as a sort of mummifying agent. It also suggests that the creature died 8 cycles ago. Now there's some debate about how long a cycle is, whether it's a galactic-wide term or a regionally measured term based on the planet's year or day length, which may vary significantly. The disparity means this creature may have died a few years ago, or as recently as a few days ago. Was this a recent battle or one fought long ago? Nothing is certain. Taking the elevator to the top of the shaft, you reach a room with foreign-looking technology interwoven into the framework of the structure. In the corner of the room, another dead body which, according to scans, has been dead relatively the same amount of time as the body at the bottom of the elevator. Laying not far is another whose muscles and physique suggests they were a warrior of some kind, but a lack of gear, armor, or weapons is curious. Perhaps they were taken by others of its kind, or perhaps looted by its killers. Were they too in a state of desperation as the Federation troopers were before their deaths? More clues, less answers. As you proceed, you walk into the main chamber atop the structure, a large room full of active machinery. Around the circumference of the room are about 12 stasis pods, concealing the life forms whose vital signs are currently stable. You've walked into a time capsule, and inside of it is the posterity and future existence of an entire race. But what would Discovery be without threat? The very same creatures that eliminated the Marines descend from their hive in the ceiling and initiate combat. Darting at you to attack and dodging from side to side, these creatures are fast, but given your superior weapons and armor, you dispatch them quickly. After their defeat, the Alpha Splinter joins the fight, faster and more deadly. After taking a beating in what looks to be the final blow, the Dark Presence appears again out of thin air and, just as before, possesses the creature, turning it into a Darkling, the Dark Alpha Splinter. Whatever these Darklings are, it's clear that they are more frantic, more aggressive, more deadly than their natural form, as if almost in a panic to stop you from going any further. But this would be no place for Samus's adventure to come to an untimely end, especially after all she's been through. So after your first boss fight, the corpse yields a strange glowing orb, which simply scans as unknown technology. It bounces around as if alive, with a personality. It merges with her suit, and a diagnostic indicates no negative impact on our systems. So we press on and hope this ever-deepening mystery begins to unravel. There's a lot unknown at this point. What is that dark presence? What is it, or who is it, that is possessing the creatures on this planet? Who are these aliens, and what is this technology that has now infiltrated your suit? Stepping into the upper chamber, these questions are laid out bare and addressed. Samus enters the room with a bright glowing orb in the middle of a large piece of alien equipment. Moths flutter about peacefully as she cautiously approaches. When out of the corner of her eye, she catches the silhouette of someone approaching.
Do not be afraid. I am Umos, Sentinel of the Luminoth. Please listen and hear of our world's peril. Long ago, a cosmic object fell to our planet Aether, exploding with great force. A rift was torn in space-time, and a strange power flowed over our world. Where once there was one Aether, there were now two, one of light and one of shadow, each existing in its own dimension. It was the end of peace on Aether, for a new race was born on that day in the dark world, one filled with hate and terrible power. They are the Ing. The Ing are creatures of shadow and darkness, knowing nothing of peace or mercy. For decades we stood against them, yet now we lie on the verge of defeat. When Dark Aether was born, our planetary energy was divided, half for our world, half for theirs. Should one world gain control of this energy, the other will perish. Before you arrived, the Ing had stolen a device from us, one that collects planetary energy. With it, they have weakened our planet to the verge of collapse. But fortune smiled upon us this day, for the energy transfer module is now bonded to you. With it, you can help us restore our world. You are our only hope, Samus. Should we fall, the Ing will look to the stars for new planets to ravage and conquer. Your species could be the next victim. The Ing have taken our energy to 3 temples on Dark Aether. Find these temples and transfer the energy from them to our own. I have updated your map system with the location of another temple. There is knowledge there that can help you on your way. I have also updated your translator module. You can now access devices and doors coded with violet holograms. Many lands are now open to you. Prepare well for your journey. The Ing now know you possess the energy transfer module. It will try to recover it at all costs. Return to me once you have restored the energy to a temple. I will aid you as I can. May the light of Aether shine upon you.
A new planet to save, and this time, you may not be the only one out alive. Umos, the sentinel for the native race called Luminoth, tasks you with the recovery of the energy of the planet itself, taken by their sworn enemies, the Ing. And as in her previous adventures, their emergence is directly correlated to a cosmic object falling from space, striking their planet and forever altering their homeworld. The Luminoth appear peaceful, deeply connected to the planet and the native creatures, while at the same time their technology is advanced and bred for war. Unlike the Chozo on Talon 4, we finally come face to face with those who are on the brink of extinction, not the ruins of those long gone. Umos now stands guard as the only warrior to fight off the Ing, defending the precious few who remain in the stasis chamber below. Not only this, but he is the last line of defense for the energy controller. As he explains, this energy has been torn from the planet and is now being funneled into the other half, the half of shadow forged and ruled by those knowing only chaos and nothing of mercy. Transdimensionally woven into the fabric of their world, he calls Dark Aether. This dangerously out of balance cosmic power may forever overtake the light dimension of their planet, forever raining darkness and chaos over the world, and perhaps collapsing the planet itself. Furthermore, he warns that Aether is not their endgame, but other worlds will be at risk at the same fate if the Ing cannot be defeated. Scans of the energy controller tell us that through harnessing the planet's energy, they have manipulation to control the planet's weather, as well as house a teleportation system, perhaps between the different controller sites. These were built before Dark Aether was born, meaning these same powers exist to the Ing as well. This perhaps explains the atmospheric storms that damage each ship that attempt to land. With your translator module updated, you are able to learn even more about who the Luminoth are. In the same room, a hologram emitter reveals Luminoth lore, origins. It is told that the Luminoth were not born of Aether, but of the stars. In the early days, we roamed the greatness of the void, bathing in the glory light of 1,000 stars. We met a vast number of enlightened minds, the Nekren, the Ila, and the Chozo among them. Each of them we found had claimed a homeworld and formed a deep bond with it. In time, we decided to do the same. So Aether is not intrinsically their home world, but their origin is a bit unclear. Perhaps they descended from the Chozo or a common primordial race. We can see that their culture and technology was likely influenced by the Chozo and these other races. It was by their example that led the Luminoth to find a planet that they could call their home, to bond to protect, and so they did. And now, that home is in your hands. As you make your way to your first major destination, Aegon Wastes, you encounter an interesting creature, a light flyer, a mechanoid drone that is, quote, once loyal to the Luminoth, and will fire bursts of energy at any living thing. It makes sense that the Luminoth would create defense drones that emit light as they resemble the light half of Aether, but why are these drones no longer loyal? Perhaps Umos programmed them to attack anything that moved since he's the last living Luminoth and stands guard alone in the tower. Perhaps they are sentient and have free thinking, and have thus surmised that allegiance to the Luminoth is now a losing battle and serve a new master. Either way, one thing is clear, these are desperate times. These stasis pods will either become their lifeboats or their tombs. Back on the surface, once again, the dark presence appears possessing a group of splinters, but if you're fast enough, you can dispatch them before they fall control to the Ing. This is an interesting discovery, creating tension between you and the enemy you've only briefly encountered. It's a race to kill the hostiles before the Ing can possess them, making them stronger. Being granted access to the gate that leads to Aegon, you encounter your first key bearer lore. It seems the Luminoth was a gatekeeper to Aegon. This warrior describes the Ing as a horde. As beasts and rogue machines have joined their ranks, they send new recruits to fight him on their behalf as they watched from afar. Just beyond this, another lore expands on the origins of the Luminoth. They searched the cosmos for such a time that they began to despair until a scout came back one day, reporting a, quote, world unlike any other. When we beheld Aether for the first time, so great was her beauty that we forsook the stars forever to live upon her surface. From that day forth, the Luminoth were of Aether, our blessed paradise. This is no longer a paradise. This is an arid wasteland. This desert greets us with the bodies of Luminoth warriors and enemies that dig below the very ground we walk on. These native hostiles are well adapted to desert living and more than poised to engage combat. Towering above our first look at Aegon Wastes is a massive statue that serves as a warning to all who venture here. As we explore a little further, we make our first interesting discovery. A sprawling tree-like structure giving off a faint blue light with roots spreading throughout the halls of the room. It's see-through and transient, as if a projection, not the real thing. Scanning the sprouted branches next to it identifies this as the blue root tree. Well fitted for desert life, highly poisonous, and only a few species can eat it and survive, naming space pirates as one of the species who can, and consider it a delicacy. And no sooner are they mentioned do they appear. Once again, Samus encounters her perennial enemy, the space pirates, who have suffered a serious defeat on Talon 4, yet remain a powerful force for crime and disorder in the galaxy. Further scans tell us that they've upgraded their gear, and with an upgrade to our scanning systems, we can now get a good look at the face of these pestering foes. Many of the trooper pirates on Talon 4 have helmets that hide their face. Now we get to look our enemy in the eyes. But why are they here? These pirates didn't come to an arid wasteland without a compelling reason, and probably a better reason than to come pick up a poisonous salad on their way through the galaxy. Ironically, the space pirates dislike theft according to the scans on their crates. They're clearly here for something. This room, called Mining Station Alpha, suggests that something of value is in or under these stones. But who started the mining operation here? The Luminoth or the pirates? Just a couple doors over, we enter the Aegon Temple, which eerily reminds me of Flagra's room atop the Sun Chamber in Chozo Ruins. Just as in previous areas of interest, the Ing possession appears out of thin air, creating the Darkling version of the Sand Digger. It seems the Ing only take time to do so when they see you as a threat, so we must be in the right place. But this is no ordinary enemy, this is actually the Morph Ball Bomb Guardian. But how did this end up in the hands of the enemy? If we remember back to the prologue when your seat was compromised in your first visit to Dark Aether, the Ing attacked with overwhelming force on an unsuspected Samus and stole several parts of her tech. The Ing must have taken your stolen gear to augment their forces. So by venturing into their world for less than a whole minute, you've given them more power and new weapons and new tech, a greater advantage against you and the Luminoth. Not exactly a great first step, but more than this, the Ing seem to have bypassed your limitations of the bomb cooldown because they've converted it into a wide-spreading artillery cannon. But after defeating the frantic, slithering Bomb Guardian, you reacquire this critical piece of weaponry. Unfortunately, the bypassing of bomb cooldown didn't exactly transfer to her Varia suit. Now that we've bolstered our weapons, we can now head through some tight corners to our next objective. But if we're observant as we roll around the temple's outer ring, we notice a new colored door, a dark energy door. Knowing how these things tend to work, something tells me that there's going to be some kind of new piece of weaponry coming our way at some point soon. But for now, our task is to find that energy controller. After being granted access through the security corridor, we enter the Aegon Energy Controller site. Scans indicate that the chamber holds solar, bio, and geothermal energy when filled. Our scanning equipment cannot calculate exactly how much energy is currently stored, but if visual clues are any indication, it appears not much at this time. At its base, a fallen warrior lays near a scannable hologram, activating an automated message.
Welcome, I am Isha, Sentinel of Aegon Temple. This message survives my death as guidance to one who will fight the Ing. A portal to Dark Aether lies nearby. With it, you can travel to this land's shadow.
You must locate the Dark Temple, a twisted mockery of the sacred place. Inside, you will find the energy controller you seek. The temple door is held fast by 3 locks. The keys to the locks are hidden throughout that dark land. Your search will be difficult. Even the very air of Dark Aether is dangerous and can cripple the strongest of warriors. In our past struggles with the Aegon, we placed a series of light crystals throughout their world. They remain today. The crystals create safe areas that will protect you from the harmful atmosphere of the dark world. I have updated your translator module. You can access devices and doors coated with amber holograms. More lands are open to explore. When you have taken the energy of the Dark Temple, return to your house. May the light of Aether serve you well.
Even in death, the Luminoth are able to restore your energy. If that's the power of the Luminoth, and they are on the verge of extinction by the hands of the Aegon, they prove to be a formidable foe. As the Chozo did before them, they have granted access to their temple only by the recovery of their temple keys. 3 for each temple, each in the possession of the Aegon, each in the dark half of Aether. So you depart from the energy control site to seek out these keys. What little that can grab hold of life in this desert has had to adapt to the brutal wasteland that Aegon has become. One such flora thrives in this environment, in large part due to details that can easily be overlooked. Behold the mightiest plant of all, morphology, sandgrass. What great secrets could this humble grass be hiding? Indigenous strain of grass adapted to desert climate. Plant requires no moisture to survive, relying exclusively on solar energy for sustenance. Evidence of extensive mutation present, suggesting radical bioadjustments within the last centicycle. Mutation source is not natural. Plant strain was genetically engineered, possibly by the Luminoth. Nothing much to see here, just some GMO lawn clippings, right? Put that on the back burner because just around the corner things get a bit darker. Upon arriving in the portal built by the Luminoth to access Dark Aether, you run into a band of space pirates. No problem, you've defeated countless hundreds in the past. But as the Aegon have so consistently done up to this point, they once again possess the bodies of your enemies, resulting in the recruitment of the Dark Space Pirate. Even the space pirates are clearly afraid of the Aegon as they helplessly fire wildly at the rift, moments away from their possession. Under its control, the Dark Pirate is enhanced in strength and stamina by the addition of the symbiote. Pirate troopers already trained to follow orders without question were perfect candidates for the Aegon possession. Darklings moved to take every trooper they could, expanding the army of the Horde considerably. Space pirate technology struck a chord with the Aegon, and now hunt actively for gadgetry of any kind, especially weapon systems. This log shows that not all creatures can be possessed by the Aegon. In fact, the willingness to blindly obey made them more suitable to possession. It appears that the stronger the mind, the more likely to resist possession. Perhaps this is why the Aegon used a horde of dark splinters to dispatch the Marines, and once dead, were more suitable to possession. After an eventful fight with the Dark Pirate troopers, the room is yours to control, and after solving an activation puzzle that was apparently too complex for the simple-minded pirates, you are finally able to enter Dark Aether, on your own terms this time. But before the portal is opened, a few important scans should not be missed. First, as you scan around the room, you encounter an object in a state of dimensional flux. This bomb slot used to activate the door out of the room is effectively split between 2 worlds, half of its atoms in the dark side, half in the light. It seems we need to access Dark Aether in order to trigger this door. As you scan through the designs of this vast machine used to access the dark half of Aether, it's interesting to note that the energy source used is solar, or light energy. Again, the Luminoth use this as their primary source. A bit ironic to use light energy to open up a dark portal. But that's exactly what makes this room all the more illuminating. The main energy controller was built in the Great Temple. 3 sub-controllers were built, in Torvus, Aegon, and Sanctuary. They collected the energy of Aether, then radiated it over the world to all who needed it. In time, we came to call this precious energy the Light of Aether. It brought peace and prosperity to the Luminoth. To this point, while explained by Umos in simplest terms, the source of energy that you are sent to recover is mostly unexplained. This being the first mention of the phrase light of Aether is a key moment. This force, used by the Luminoth, is their primary source of energy for their people. While we as humans rely on such things as fossil fuels, nuclear, wind, solar, and hydro, the Luminoth use what they call the light of Aether. This not only is the power source of their people, but its harnessing allows them to manipulate the weather for the good of the planet. So where exactly does this light energy come from? Surprisingly, it's not a star. Unlike Talon 4 or Earth, Aether is a rogue planet. It exists outside the influence of a light-giving star, seemingly floating in the Dasha region of space. So as the Luminoth state, the energy radiates from the planet itself. While the exact source of this energy is not fully understood, Aether's planetary energy supply reached a critical stage. If left unchecked, the energy would expire, bringing an end to the world. Our greatest minds devised a way to preserve and regulate the remaining planetary energy: the energy controllers. The controllers not only harnessed the energy of the planet, but saved the planet itself. It is only fitting that the Ing have now used this very same technique to create their own world within a world and destroy the other. Think back to the humble sungrass. This genetically modified grass survives on solar energy, not from a star, but by the solar energy emitted from the planet itself and mitigated by the energy controllers devised by the Luminoth. While it cannot be certain that the Luminoth also modified the grass, it would fit their intentionality to save every possible life form as the precious energy slips from their world to the dark, and by doing so, puts every plant, animal, and sentient life form at risk of extinction. This image of the Luminoth in the midst of monumental war, applying resources to care for even a desert grass, suggests their deep bond to the planet. It shows the heart of a warrior and the mind of a scientist to not let any living thing behind in the battle of light versus dark. You now retrace the footsteps of a battle long lost, once fought by the Luminoth. Some crystals remain lit, others extinguished, and others with the power only to remain lit for a short amount of time, showing they were in a fight draining their resources, a fight they were losing. We then encounter the bomb slot on the other side of the dimensional bounds, fully present and fully functioning. As the bomb slot activates, the door opens, and moments later, another door split between dimensional flux opens as well. As you do, you receive an alert: transdimensional activity detected. A device has been activated back on Aether. This confirms the door opening on the other side, but also refers to the light half of the planet simply as Aether, which implies that this dark Aether is the imposter, not an opposite equal, acting more like a leeching clone more than a brother. From here on out, there are two planets, Dark Aether and the true planet simply known as Aether. Before making your first save point here in Dark Aether, it's interesting to note the fledgling existence of the Night Barb, a three-pronged darkling flyer that survives by flying in packs, since their primary predators are Hunter Ing. So even in their realm, there is predator and prey. One of the first things to note in this new frontier is found while looking at the map. The names of each room are different in Dark Aether. While this may be a small detail, it further cements the identity of this truly being a different world. But our first few steps are taken notice by the Ing, who quickly dispatch a single warrior Ing to face you one-on-one. One of their main weapons, transdimensional energy. So one must wonder, where does transdimensional energy comes from? If the light of Aether is the planet's natural energy, and the energy has been stolen by the Ing, has it been converted into this transdimensional energy in the same way that the bomb slot in the portal room was trapped in transdimensional flux? If so, is this fight manifesting in some way back on Aether as the energy is released by the Hunter Ing? None of this is discernible, at least to this point. Before exiting the room, we encounter another Luminoth creation, the Lightbringer, a three-legged crystalline creature that emits light energy as it walks about. Immune to most weaponry, these creatures seem unaware to your presence as they neither harm you on contact or follow you as you traverse the path along the outer wall, a relic left behind by the Luminoth in their war efforts. It is easy to see why they went to such great lengths to leave these crystals behind. A few brief moments in the atmosphere of Dark Aether drains your health dangerously low, warranting a pit stop inside the safe area of a light crystal to regenerate your health. Blade pods and ink cache containers which drop energy orbs are finite in each room. reducing the pacing which Samus can explore Dark Aether. As you slowly move through this dark planet, you take in its surroundings, and it makes you really appreciate what's on the other side. Where in the past, many of the dangers you faced could be quickly blasted through or speedily avoided, here, simply standing still could kill you. As you wait idly in the safe haven of this light bubble, you are forced with the reality that you might die if you go out there. There's no going forward while your health is low, no blasting through carefree. This opening chapter in Dark Aether is significantly more costly than the opening chapter in Chozo Ruins. After recovering your health from the Hunter Ing fight, or just from walking around, you enter the Judgment Pit. And if that's not a foreboding name for a room, I don't know what is. All the more reason to take this place slow and keep your health topped. Who knows what's around the next corner? Only a few rooms into Dark Aegon, you are faced with your first boss, the Jump Guardian. This enemy is much like the previous Warrior Ing, but augmented with the space jump boots they stole from you. In addition to the abilities of the standard infantry, this Guardian can temporarily produce a damage mitigating shield, repelling all firepower. As it jumps several stories dodging your weapons, it slams into the ground, creating an expanding ring of dark energy across the floor, forcing you to jump out of the way or be knocked backwards by its damaging force. The orb of light produced by the crystal in the center of the room is your saving grace. All of your offensive and defensive moves can be done from inside the safe area of this rejuvenating bubble. This doesn't mean you're impervious to damage, far from it, but the constant passive health regeneration makes the most difficult enemy faced thus far surprisingly doable. Upon its death, you are rewarded once again with the ability of the space jump boots, maneuvering across Dark Aether in style. Just a hop, skip, and a double jump down the way, you enter the Dark Aegon Temple access room. A standard enough room, with the exception of one bizarre-looking plant. A tree or root-like structure that burrows through the sand and up through the roof, which looks oddly familiar. While unscannable in dark or light aether, this is no doubt the bluish translucent plant structure that you were actually walking through not too long ago in Aegon Wastes. We've seen bomb slots, doors, and now plants caught in trans-dimensional flux. It seems nothing is exempt from slipping into the dark world. Our first look at the Dark Aegon Temple looks much like it did back on Aether, except that massive thing in the center of the temple. After acquiring the easiest key that Retro ever designed for retrieval, it's time to backtrack to Aegon Wastes. This back and forth between dark and light presents this game's progression as sort of a puzzle, figuring out what needs to be triggered between the two worlds to advance through each realm. By the numbers alone, you encounter far less enemies in Dark Aether. Upon your return from your first trip, you are greeted by 3 space pirates, and in your previous trip to Dark Aegon, you killed just 2 enemies, a lone warrior Ing and the space jump mini-boss. This speaks to just how potent your first encounter is with the dark atmosphere. To this point, you are likely to be more damaged by the air of Dark Aether than the enemies that lurk there, which proved thus far to be a more significant challenge than the rabble of the common soldiery found in the space pirate ranks. As you retrace the footsteps of the Luminoth before you, you find yourself retracing your own footsteps, frequenting the same access rooms throughout your travels. At the base of one such room lays the body of a dead Luminoth soldier who you casually roll on as you progress. A dark, frequent reminder of why you are here. Continuing on, you encounter a lore which describes the day when it all happened. Luminoth lore Cataclysm, the first in the chapter called Dark Age. A starborn terror burnt through the heavens and struck Aether with untold might. We all expected the world to shatter, but Aether held. There was great devastation, however. The green plains of Aegon were scorched forever, and the forests of Torvus were engulfed and wrecked by the sea. The skies burned for days, casting darkness over the land. Such force that the Luminoth believed the whole planet would break apart. Skies burning for days, then shrouding the entire planet with darkness. This is the moment when the story of Echoes truly began, although unbeknownst to the Luminoth. Not far from this hologram, we encounter a familiar scene, a pair of space pirates standing guard in front of a few containers of Phazon. It seems the events of the past do not forecast a change in behavior for these space pirates. As you enter the central mining station, something isn't right. Thus far, everything you've seen has been primarily Luminoth tech, but as you enter the station, it appears the area has been taken over by space pirates. Their machines now tower over the once peaceful plains, and if charred twisted metal is any indication, It seems something has either recently gone wrong or the pirates are casually blasting their way along the same path that you're forging. After a dropship delivers plenty of trash to take out, you gain access to the Space Pirate Labs right under their feet. As you roll through the floor, a squadron of pirates charge through a dark portal in the middle of the chamber. It seems they have reason to scout out Dark Aether as well. Your presence alerts the security systems, which puts the entire facility on lockdown, trapping you inside their labs, which is a fancy way of saying giving you free access to all their intelligence, which you promptly scan. And it is a massive amount of data. Their research on Dark Aether dubs it a trans-dimensional duplicate of planet Aether, which is right on the money, though they can't explain its origin. What they can trace, however, is the presence of high levels of Phazon ore. More haunting is the following statement: native bioforms attack on sight. No exception, no distinguishing between hostile or docile, no quarter, just attack on sight. Their assessment of Aether is described as an obscure world in the Dasha region, war-torn and unstable and vastly uninhabitable. So basically a space pirate's paradise. Visible in their holograms is a series of craters and scars left on the planet's surface from the meteor strike that ravaged the planet. Much like the research labs in Phendrana, the command center serves as the broad stroke that paints the reasoning why we have space pirates in Echoes. Reading each log and report in chronological order paints the grim and devolving situation that they've gotten themselves into. Starting with log 44681, science teams detected the presence of Phazon in the Dasha system 4 cycles ago. High Command authorized the deployment of our team shortly thereafter. Our orders are to establish a base on the planet Aether and evaluate local Phazon resources. Because this world lies in the periphery of the Galactic Federation territory, we are following stealth protocols at the highest level. A cadre of elite commandos has been dispatched to provide security for our force as well. This operation is now underway. Now we can confirm why they are here. A newfound source of Phazon, as was their presence on Talon 4. Continuing on to log 48853, intelligence reports on the indigenous population of Aether are in error. This planet is not at peace, nor are the inhabitants docile. Evidence of a Class 4 conflict is present here, though hostilities are at a minimal level now. Our territory has suffered several raids by a strange type of shadowy creature. These raids have caused considerable damage, and we have requested more combat troops in response. Much like the Marines, the space pirates had no idea what kind of hornet's nest they were poking at when they conducted operations on Aether. They too identify the hostile bioforms as shadowy creatures, which bear no name, have no origin, but bring death and destruction, even in small numbers. This is where things begin to take form. Log 586. A spatial anomaly has been found within our base. We believe this rift in space-time leads to a parallel dimension of some type, but have been unable to interact with it thus far. A strange artifact was found near the anomaly as well. It may be a weapon or generator of some kind. Perhaps it is the key to accessing the anomaly. High Command is eager for reports on the relic. A new weapon for our arsenal is always welcome. Log 54421. The rift portal has been opened. The artifact weapon, dubbed the Dark Beam by the science team, provides energy needed to open the portal, although for a limited time. We have sent expeditions through the portal, and they have returned with incredible news. The portal leads to a parallel version of Aether. This Dark Aether has suffered a global calamity, turning it into a toxic wasteland. It is the homeworld of the shadowy creatures who have been raiding our base for the last cycle. Most importantly, it is the prime location of Phazon in this sector. Extraction plans are being prepared. We will not be denied. These two logs raise some serious questions. Did the Dark Rift appear on its own? Probably not. So what or who opened it? And if who, why would they leave behind this so-called Dark Beam weapon right next to the portal? Whoever or whatever opened the rift has given the space pirates both access to Phazon on Dark Aether and this new weapon, increasing their firepower as well as their morale. Or is this Dark Beam the lure to a trap? Their first expedition yields mixed results. Log 62217 tells us that their Phazon extraction is underway, but at considerable cost. Frequent raids and the hostile atmosphere is taking a toll. Our troops and resources are spread dangerously thin. This mission cannot fail. If a lethal atmosphere, diminishing supply lines, and frequent casualties is bad enough, Medical Report 719909 reads, Technician 12 relieved after showing symptoms of Phazon fever, in where he claimed the Phazon as his own and held us at gunpoint until security arrived. As medical teams are addressing the threat of Phazon fever, it is right around this time that your story on Aether begins. Security Report 72014. The Marine vessel has been under attack by indigenous predators for several days. Casualties are high. The Marine force is near elimination. But with the Marines on the brink of being completely wiped out, the pirates chose not to deliver the knockout blow. As Century Report 72024 says, I grow weary of standing watch at this wasteland. The accursed Marines are weak and vulnerable. Why do we not attack? They owe us a fate debt for the attack on our supply ship. Instead of settling accounts, we sit around this sandpit like a bunch of old, timid spinsters. It's time for action. From the chronology and dates of entry of previous logs, we can surmise that the pirates were operating on Aether long before the Federation troopers first identified and engaged the space pirates operating in the area. We know that the pirates were operating under stealth protocols until being discovered, but they didn't return the punch thereafter. Rather, they watched from afar and let the Darklings take care of them. Perhaps their ability to conduct battle had been reduced to hit-and-run tactics. Or, perhaps having already sustained several raids by Darklings, they lured the Marines into the open in hopes that they would fall victim to these shadowy creatures. They did. Further reports suggest just how desperate the pirates were getting at this point. Metroid Energy Report 72029. Until we recover more Phazon, we rely on Metroids for power. Command has authorized mass breeding of Metroids for this purpose. Other computers report scouts missing in action and counts of the dead and injured due to frequent attacks by native bioforms. Even in the most desperate times, the pirates can't resist but conduct experiments on their foes. Their relationship to creatures is an odd one after all. Metroid Handling Protocols 72022. Metroids are not pets. Metroids are not target practice. Finally, unauthorized feeding of Metroids is strictly prohibited. As much as I find the idea of space pirates calling a Metroid a pet humorous and oddly comforting actually, it's equally disturbing that one man's pet is another man's target practice. As you venture upstairs toward the final entries in this library of logs, one foreboding entry reads, Planetary Stability Report 72031. Planetary energy is at critical, creating violent climate changes and tectonic shifts. Unless conditions can be reversed, global destruction is inevitable. As was in the case of Talon 4, the fate of the planet, it seems, is now in your hands. If that isn't enough to raise the stakes, the pirates leave behind their final entries, a series of security alerts. Scans on the Dark Hunter have been revealed. She grows stronger as she consumes Phazon. Already a platinum AAA threat level, we shudder to think of her power level if she consumes our entire Phazon supply. Security alert. All units to battle stations. The Dark Hunter has breached the Metroid production facility. Protect Phazon supply at all costs. Death to the Dark Hunter. Glory to the space pirates. Security alert. All systems and units. DataNet has been compromised. The Hunter has hacked our DataNet. All our secrets are now hers. She cannot be allowed to escape. Terminate her on sight. So let's pause and review all the forces at play here. You are sent to aid a fledgling group of Marines who are eradicated by the Ing while the space pirates watched from afar. They are now at war against the Ing in order to mine Phazon, but are blocked by the dark version of Samus, who is on Dark Aether for the same reason as they are, its source of Phazon. Now you are at war against the three major enemies, the space pirates, the Ing, and yourself. These three forces are playing a game of chess. It's checkmate for the Marines, and the space pirates are next. At this point, it's unclear if the Dark Hunter is allied with the Ing or acting alone. Although your brief encounter revealed a passivity on the part of the Ing towards the Dark Hunter, so long as you were promptly dealt with. Either way, it looks like you will have to defeat all three factions in order to save the Luminoth, who you weren't even originally on the mission to save. The pirates are here for one thing, Phazon. Their unquenched hunger for it, their inability to conduct war due to dwindling resources and manpower, and their slipping morale suggest the pirates are far weaker upon your arrival than they previously were. That's good news because you're now fighting the war on three fronts. Follow all of that? Okay, let's continue. Oh, and remember the security alert about the Dark Hunter breaching the Metroid production facility? That's in the next room. And that security alert was hot off the presses. Entering the biostorage station, you are met with what little remains of the space pirate security and are faced with the first scans of a familiar sight. A Metroid held in the containment chamber. this one being held in a constant state of agitation, preventing it from entering sleep cycles. Upstairs, a larger containment room with Phazon present in the tank. Multiple Metroids in a symbiotic life form being kept barely alive enough to leach the energy produced by the Metroids. These Metroids are identified as Talon Metroids, suggesting they were brought over after the defeat on Talon 4. They serve the pirates as a means for energy harvesting, but again we are reminded of their irresistible nature to treat them as pets, as one of them is unfortunately suffering from food poisoning due to pet treats and pirate rations that do not agree with its digestive systems. Its counterpart in an adjacent chamber has several visible scars from escape attempts. The pirates are clearly stretching these Metroids to their limits for the precious energy they harvest from them. At this moment, you receive an alert. A Luminoth weapon detected in the hands of the space pirates. A new objective? Recover this technology. Before departing, one final lore depicts the fear present among pirate ranks. Pirate log 63622 places this entry shortly after their Phazon raids on Dark Aether reached maximum efficacy, and are now sustaining frequent casualties to the Ing, Dark Aether's atmosphere, and Phazon itself. Samus Aran, the accursed hunter, has arrived. The sudden arrival of the hunter is strange enough, but her actions are stranger still. She does not seek our destruction, but our Phazon. With each raid, she steals Phazon ore, only killing those who attempt to deny her. What she needs it for, we do not know, though science team suspects she requires it to power her new armor suit. Dark in color, it is equipped with strange new weapons. The troops now call her the Dark Hunter. It is a fitting title. They think Dark Samus is you, and her dark appearance is from a new suit. This makes sense. They fought you in a whole wardrobe of suits on Talon 4, and the latest was the Phazon suit acquired from the Omega Pirate in the depths of their base in Phazon Mines. Dark in appearance and clad with streaks of blue from the radioactive ore, the pirates no doubt took note of this new look back on Talon 4, and now refer to your counterpart as the Dark Hunter. Furthermore, Security Report 71997 tells us that the Dark Hunter was trying to breach the Metroid containment chamber and suggests that she is behind the previous Metroid thefts. Moreover, the damage she is causing the pirates presented in log 67135, Dark Samus disabled their stealth field, rendering them vulnerable to the Federation soldiers, but they are relying on the remote nature of Aether to aid them from not being detected. In this game of chess, the Dark Hunter is the one that exposed the pirates, just prior to being detected by the Marines. Perhaps she saw the Marines as a non-threat by comparison, an enemy of her enemy, a means of extinguishing the pirates for her. She didn't seem surprised at your coming either. Perhaps this was all a ruse to lure you here. Absorbing the power of their Phazon reserves, the Dark Hunter waits for your arrival. Dark Samus bears your DNA, your suit, your image. Infused with Phazon, she is your antithesis, your clone, your previous enemy Metroid Prime reborn. Armed with a Phazon charged scattershot, missile launcher, and the ability to summon Phazon, creating an impenetrable shielding around her, she darts around the room, launching at you like a radioactive cannonball. But for all of her weapons, armor, and speed, she falls to your humble power beam, sparking a chain reaction, sending energy bolts of Phazon back into the containment chambers. Dark Samus appears into tiny dots and fades into the atmosphere. If a chain reaction that collapsed the impact crater didn't kill her last time, something tells me we haven't seen the last of her this time. As we are left with our questions surrounding Dark Samus, we are immediately presented with one final important pirate lore. Log 69898 titled Shadow War. The local war has escalated in intensity. The Shadowlings from Dark Aether launched an offensive. The assault seemed to be on a central network of buildings atop a mountain. A base, perhaps. Strangely, this attack coincided with the rise in planetary instability. Perhaps these shadow creatures are using a new kind of weapon system. The Shadowlings must believe us to be foes, for they have hit our base numerous times as well. We are holding, but this attrition is taking a toll on our troops and our resources. Reinforcements are en route. We can only wait and defend what is ours. In the order of events, this entry is placed right at the end of the 6th cycle, right before the arrival of the Federation Marines. It reports of a massive attack on the Luminoth protecting the stasis chambers atop the Great Temple. This paints the Luminoth on their final legs, moments away from total annihilation, right before you arrive. It is perhaps fate that Dark Samus wiped out the space pirate's stealth shield, leading to their detection by the Marines, them crash landing and creating a diversion for the Ing long enough for you to arrive and acquire the energy transfer module in the final room of defense the Luminoth had left. Though it's far too early to claim victory, we now know just how close this war was to being lost. One room away. Dark Samus's defeat comes with a significant reward, the Dark Beam. Unlike on Talon 4, this dark energy-powered weapon has a limited ammo capacity, but firing it interfaces with the Dark Portal, giving you passage to the same area of Dark Aether ventured by the space pirates you saw charge in not too long ago. And apparently they didn't get very far. Scans indicate causes of death from shattered spines and organ failure from atmospheric inhalation. Another pirate was killed by its own forces after turning on his allies against its will. It seems the Ing were well prepared for the pirates on the other side of the portal. Across from the room lies the second Dark Aegon key, and after using the Dark Beam to interface with the mechanized platform, it's quickly acquired, leaving only one more to find to access the Dark Temple. And with rooms with names like Doomed Entry, exploring the rest of Dark Aegon is irresistible. And in this room, a dead pirate whose cause of death is from a massive biosystem shock while falling prey to a parasitic fusion. Interestingly enough, the death of the pirate also resulted in the death of the parasite. The Ing are so dominantly poised to win a war of attrition that they would freely sacrifice one of their own for the death of a single pirate. All throughout this region are dead pirates laying next to their prize of Phazon crates. It's clear now why the pirates faced such turmoil and danger to mine this valuable resource. It's literally everywhere. In the next room you encounter a familiar sight, a containment chamber full of Phazon. The same as in the biostorage station, however, while the same Phazon is present here in the feeding pit, the Metroids are not. Perhaps suggesting that the Phazon brought over to Aether still exists in some form back on Dark Aether. Instead, this room is flooded with poisonous dark water, like the water back in Chozo Ruins. Atop the room lies a dead Luminoth standing guard over the light beam. Its death far outdates the presence of the space pirates in Dark Aether. It's possible that the pirates never made it this far. Wielding the light beam, Samus is now able to charge the light crystals, creating a powerful offensive barrier, damaging the Ing that come in contact with it. Additionally, its powerful burst of light energy significantly increases the damage against dark enemies and opens up passages through the Ing barriers, such as weblings. Through this barrier, we are presented with one final Dark Aegon key, located in the battleground. It won't be a free key this time. But the acquisition of the light beam makes short work of the warrior Ing, which is good because instead of killing one, you now have a half a dozen to eliminate. The hardest part of this fight is conserving your ammo. But after wiping them out and acquiring the third key, you are ready to head back to the Dark Aegon Temple for your first step towards restoring the energy of the planet. But to return to the Dark Temple, you actually need to cross back into Aegon Wastes in order to pass through the correct portal. Backtracking through the biostation, the Metroids, now without their pirate masters, break out of their containment chambers, and they are long overdue for a feeding. But using the newly acquired Dark Beam, they are easy prey for the likes of Samus. This room now serves as an empty shell for the pirates, effectively showing their control on Aegon has slipped away. No more patrols to guard the Phazon reserves, empty containment chambers and machinery cycling away. What few pirates remain in Aegon guard the control center and your pathway back to the temple, who pose little threat to you and your new weaponry. It's a lonely road back to the temple as you traverse through the mostly empty desert, except for a family of moths who seem to take a liking to the bluish light emitted from your suit. A symbol as if the Luminoth are watching over you. And speaking of, just through the door lies another keybearer, Laura. The previous keybearer laid rest at the door that led to Aegon Wastes, as if standing guard as a gatekeeper to the land itself. But this keybearer seems a bit out of place, on the ledge of a main reactor. He mentions another fallen warrior and friend named, I'm not going to pronounce this, JSTL, who can be found not far away in the alcove above the central mining station. His account records killing over 100 Ing by himself after being ambushed before finally falling in battle. Their resting places are curious, both slain by the Ing in pirate-occupied Aegon. More curious still is the first mention of a Sky Temple in BSTL's record. This is the first mention of a Sky Temple, and his dying prayer is that the way to the Sky Temple would be opened. These keybearers seem not to be gatekeepers standing watch as suggested before, but trailblazers attempting to open a passage to a new land. What keys are they seeking, and what lies beyond its gate? Nothing can be sure now. All we know is that we have a different gate to open ourselves. The pathway to Dark Aegon Temple. Amorbus, the massive triple-headed sand-eating, rock-splitting worm that can sense your every movement and swallow you whole. To music similar of the Parasite Queen and mechanics similar to Flagra, This boss fight is a huge callback to the trilogy's previous installment. The final guardian of Dark Aegon, this massively mutated desert hydra, serves as your longest boss fight to date and puts your dexterity to the test. Despite its incredible size, launching into the air and diving back into the sand, Amorbis poses as a difficult target to hit. Little by little, you chip away at its exoskeleton, exposing the head of the snake, creating an opportunity to score critical damage to its core. With its defeat, Samus acquires a massive upgrade, the Dark Suit. With the ability to withstand the dark atmosphere for longer periods, adventuring through these shadowy lands possesses less of an immediate danger, allowing you to hasten your passage through Dark Aegon. But before you do, there's one reason why you're here: to transfer this temple's energy back to Aegon. Draining the corrupted energy from this temple yields an interesting observation: a curious change in color, as if purifying it in the process of transferring it from one world to another. At last you can return back to Umos. The Ing haven't taken this lightly. Returning to the temple ring, a flurry of warriors meet you there. Each subsequent room is met with significantly more resistance than before. Though you take less damage from the atmosphere, legions of Ing now initiate you in combat. Clearly, you have their attention. Returning to Aegon Temple, the energy of dark Aether, tainted blood red, now sanctified in a golden yellow, emanates from the energy controller and to the relief of Umos, now channels to the Great Temple. In a final notion of gratitude, the Sentinel of Aegon, Isha, bows in respect, restores your energy, and fades away into the history of the Luminoth. Your final image of this desert wasteland, the statue of Amorbis, serves no longer as a warning to passers-by, but a trophy of victory won, thanks in part to the weapons forged by those who once walked these fruitful plains. Your triumphant return to Umos is a warm welcome, a rekindled hope to the Luminoth and all creatures of Aether.
I thank you for restoring the energy to the Temple of Aegon. Your valley honors the Luminoth, those who have passed and those who remain here, under my protection as they sleep in deep stasis. Be on guard, for the Ing do not suffer defeat lightly. They will surely seek revenge for your action. With the energy lost from the desert region, they will increase their efforts in other lands. I have detected unusual amounts of activity in the Tarvis sector. The enemy is on the move. The swamplands of Torvis are treacherous and can hinder you considerably. Bear this in mind as you move through the bog. Seek the Temple of Torvis. More knowledge awaits you there. May the light of Aether serve you well.
Umos blesses you before you depart for your next step in your journey, but you will not be going alone. The enemy is on the move.